From 1915 to 1940, approximately 6 million African Americans made a courageous journey from the South to northern cities in the United States. This monumental movement, known as the Great Migration, was driven by the unwavering determination to seek better opportunities. Between 1910 and 1940, cities such as Chicago, Detroit, New York City, and Philadelphia saw significant changes in their racial composition. During and after World War II, a wave of Black migrants moved into these cities, following friends and relatives who had previously made the journey. Economic hardships in the Jim Crow South intensified this migration, leading to a larger influx of people than during the earlier 1910 through 1940 period. As a result, many cities across the Northeast, Midwest, and West developed substantial Black population centers. A significant number of literary and artistic works have been dedicated to the Great Migration. Notable examples include Isabel Wilkerson's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Warmth of Other Suns, and Jacob Lawrence's celebrated Migration series. This event is significant not only as an act of freedom and defiance, but also for its profound impact on both the South and the North. While the North had superficially championed civil rights, the Great Migration challenged it to move beyond mere acceptance. James Baldwin, a prolific author and civil rights activist, expressed a crucial point about racial dynamics in America.
A boy in Birmingham is in great trouble in Birmingham. He has, in a way, one advantage, though. It's very clear in Birmingham that he can't go anywhere. A boy born in New York can go almost anywhere. Almost. This can drive you mad. This can drive you mad. You can live almost anywhere. If you fight to get in, you can enter almost any nightclub, you can enter almost any bar, and nothing will happen. But this almost means that there is a bar, there is a hotel, there is a doorman, there is an elevator boy, there is somebody every day. There is that one place you cannot go, which means you enter every door on edge.
He noted that in the South, African Americans faced overt prejudice and hostility. The boundaries of where they could go and what their place was clearly defined. In contrast, the North presented a more insidious form of racism, where individuals had to remain vigilant and aware of their surroundings as mistreatment was often concealed. A major catalyst for the migration was the limited opportunities for male workers to find skilled labor jobs, and female workers being qualified for anything other than jobs as maids. While the African Americans who came north would make more money financially than those who remained in the South, that prosperity came at a cost because they faced decreased life expectancy and higher incarceration rates, highlighting the economic and social challenges they had to endure during the Great Migration. There's ample documentation of the challenges faced by African Americans during this transition, as highlighted by the Chicago Defender, which received hundreds of letters from African Americans in the South seeking to improve their circumstances. Some of these letters were published in the Journal of Negro History, which was released by E.J. Scott in 1919. One Midwest city that prided itself as a manufacturing leader in over 50 different commodities was Dayton, Ohio, home to National Cash Register, golf clubs, and electrical refrigeration, to name a few. In 1910, Dayton, Ohio had an African American population of 3%. By 1960, this number would balloon to 20%, with approximately 60,000 African American residents residing on the west side of the city. This significant increase was due to the discriminatory lending practices that until 1950 had restrictions on selling homes to Blacks. According to J.H. Harmon, the Midwest experienced unprecedented growth in Black-owned businesses due to the Great Migration. These occupations included barbers, caterers, and restaurateurs. While Black businesses initially received support from their local communities and churches, Friends often expected them to act as friends rather than professional business people, which sometimes led to a devaluation of the services these entrepreneurs worked hard to provide. Tonight, we'll hear the story of Ben Logan, an African American entrepreneur who took on the role of creating employment opportunities for thousands of Black individuals. His story is both captivating and a sobering reminder that when faced with adversity, some people find the strength to persevere. Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Michelle, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Tab Talks. And I have an exciting guest with me today, Jesse Logan. Hey, Jesse, how are you?
I'm fine, Michelle. How you doing? I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here today, too. We're going to be talking about empowerment through enterprise. And our show today has primarily focused on African Americans that left the South to come to the North. And of course, what did the North offer them in terms of businesses and enterprise? And your family was pretty industrious during that time in creating a lot of opportunities for African Americans in the Midwest. And so I was excited that you agreed to come on the show and talk about your dad, your mom, you, because obviously you were involved in the family enterprise as well. So, without further ado, Jesse, I'm going to jump into the questions and hopefully we have a good time here. Okay, your dad was a pretty successful business owner during some of the most turbulent times that I'm aware of in terms of for Black entrepreneurs and workers. At the height of your dad's business enterprise, how many businesses did he own and how many employees?
Okay, at the height, Daddy owned 17 businesses, and many people migrated from the South, and they came to work with Dad when they couldn't find jobs anywhere else. Dad would give them jobs. Um, Over the course of 43 years that Mom and Dad were in business, they employed over 1,000 employees.
17 businesses. Okay, did everybody wrap their hands around that? 17. He didn't say seven, everybody. He said 17. Okay, first of all, I guess we have to talk about how did systemic racism and segregation impact his abilities to secure funding, like resources, labor, real estate? Because these were businesses that were formed like during the 50s through the 70s, correct?
Correct. Yes, there were inadequate loans. Black businesses, Dad could not get loans, or they were inadequate loans. Dad could not buy new, and he couldn't build. He had to buy old buildings and remodel them and fix them up to the way he wanted them to be. And the old buildings, there was no air conditioning. There were only portable fans and exhaust fans, and that's all we had.
Wow. So anybody out there who's complaining about you couldn't do it, obviously we're hearing from an entrepreneur that figured out a way to do it in spite of some insurmountable odds. Okay, so what kind of community support helped with the survival of his business, during that time of social upheaval and economic disparity?
Well, during that time, civil right, during the civil rights period, 75, US 75 and 35 came through, and that divided the whole community. People had to move out, and they moved all over town, which decreased our business. Um, there was confusion, chaos, there was burglaries, there were windows broken, burning of buildings, a lot of disrespect, a lot of fighting. There were drugs, and that unlike ever before. Um, Daddy had to bring in dogs. He had to have dogs in his buildings at nighttime. And matter of fact, the dogs lived in the buildings all the time, but during the day, the dogs were put up. And at night, he would have to let the dogs out. So people would be fearful of breaking into his businesses and tearing up and robbing. Um, and in turn, also, Dad had to sell a lot of his businesses because the people just weren't there. The customers weren't there. So the revenue went down.
Wow. So when we talk about the 60s, Lyndon B. Johnson, everybody raised about the Civil Rights Act and a lot of the anti-poverty initiatives that he put into place, like Job Corps, SNAP, school lunch programs. How do you think these economic policies either helped or hindered Black business owners, and particularly urban areas?
Well, we had a lot of loyal customers, a lot of loyal customers that through the thick and thin, they continued to come and patronize us. And that was great. And we're ever grateful for them. However, the robberies and thefts still, pursued, even within the business itself. Some of our employees were stealing as well. Um, there were difficult times. You didn't know who you could trust during that time. Um, Many of the kids and young people were unable to qualify for these programs under SNAP and these different qualifications. They couldn't qualify. So dad and mom would feed a lot of kids, a lot of adults. They would feed them free. They wouldn't charge them anything. And mommy and daddy fed a lot of people free. They got free lunches, free dinners, a lot of them. So dad and mama, there were kids from Garfield, Roosevelt, and Dunbar that would come to our restaurants and eat, and Daddy would feed them. So there were other places that employees could work beside Dad's place during that time. So they would go to Inland and GM and et cetera, to these other companies at work. So they would just come through, work with us for a short time and go on to the bigger companies and make more money where there were more benefits. So, it all worked out like that.
Wow. So, it's interesting because it sounds like your parents were really angels in disguise in the community in terms of helping. Yet
They
that
did.
same community seemed like they weren't as respectful as they could have been for all the benefits that your parents provided. So I do have a question. Did they
Mhm.
experience violence? You talked about, during their business enterprise, and what was that psychological and emotional toll on your family because of that?
Okay. Um, there was a lot of fighting, a lot of violence. There was inadequate police protection. Um, Dad even tried to buy off the police to win their friendship so they would help protect his businesses. Daddy would feed the police officers free. They could come in anytime they came into his restaurants. He would feed them free. If they came into his bars, he would give them free liquor. During Christmas time, Dad would buy 5, 6, 7 cases of liquor. Each case had 12 fifths of liquor. Dad would buy all that extra liquor, and the police would come in and he would give them free fifths of liquor for Christmas. So he had to try to buy police protection, and it still didn't work. He still got inadequate police protection. So there was so much distrust. Um, uh, uh, but through all that, Daddy kept and Mom kept positive attitude, and they kept moving forward. They had long-time friendships with a lot of people, loyal customers. However, Daddy did start drinking quite a bit during that time because the pressure was so great, more than he should have. And so Daddy drank quite a bit, and it consequently, in the last 10 years of his life, he developed cancer of the liver bile duct. And at that time, they had no cure for cancer. So Dad ended up dying at age 61.
So, you had 17 businesses though at the height. So that tells me there was still a measure of success in spite
Yes.
of those economic conditions. So, what kind of backlash did your family face from other competing businesses?
When Daddy had the first that I know of, Daddy had the first 15-cent hamburger in Dayton in 1946 when he started his business. There were no other businesses, no other 15-cent hamburgers around that I knew of, and or daddy or mommy knew of. And so daddy, he specialized in that 15-cent hamburger, and daddy could do that because he had worked at Sucre's Packing Company, and he was their first hog splitter there. He was a butcher. He learned to be a butcher at Sucre's. So that's got him started with his first business. Plus, you know, he had peanut machines and stuff that he put around town and so forth. And he made money off of those penny machines and nickel machines, cashews and peanuts and so forth. So daddy started his business, specialized when he started with 15-cent hamburgers, his famous smothered steak sandwiches, malts, milkshakes, hot dogs, and chili. And people came from all over to Dayton to get these items, especially the hamburgers and smothered steak sandwiches and hot dogs. They were so popular. Matter of fact, when McDonald's did come to Dayton, they started their first business on Germantown Pike up on the hill near Germantown and Gettysburg. First McDonald's, and they wanted Dad to franchise the first McDonald's, and Dad said no because he wanted to be his own boss. He wanted to buy his own products, have his own products. He didn't want nobody telling him how to run his business. He wanted to do it himself. So Daddy turned down McDonald's franchise. Consequently, they got Clay McCargo to do it. And so Clay McCargo took over that franchise at the first McDonald's. And so, however, there was a lot of jealousy amongst whites and blacks because of Dad's success. And so it developed into the IRS developing, consequently wanting to audit Dad's books.
Yeah, when you get a juggernaut like McDonald's coming on the scene and your dad having the ability to tell a McDonald's no, then you know you're going to gain the ire of someone like the IRS, who probably was not necessarily friendly to a lot of businesses that were head by people that look like us. This is really powerful stuff. So, how did the media's portrayal of Black businesses during that time affect public behavior or even consumer behavior towards your family business? Did the media help at all? Or do
The
you think
media,
they created more stereotypes and things like that?
well, Daddy was interviewed by Walter Cronkite on TV, and Dayton Daily News on it as well. And what they said was Dad, they trumped up a lot of charges on Dad and said he didn't pay his taxes, and he gave elaborate parties, and he made a lot of money on the side that he never turned in and paid taxes on. So they trumped up all these charges. Dad got an attorney, consequently, of another color, and the attorney advised Dad not to show his books. Dad wanted to show his books so the IRS would get off of him, IRS. And the attorney said, no, you do not have to show your books. Fifth Amendment. And consequently, Dad took the attorney's advice. He didn't show his books. And they took consequently, Internal Revenue took all of Dad's and Mom's New York's life insurance. It was over $100,000. They took their whole life insurance and they said, either you pay this money or you go to prison. They gave Dad that alternative. Either you go to prison or you pay this money. So they had to turn over all their life insurance over to the IRS in order not for Dad not to go to prison.
Wow. Wow. So, as if I've got some Black entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs in general listening to this story today, what strategies would you suggest, like successful Black business owners like your father employ to navigate these societal challenges of the time? And how can this story inform current entrepreneurs? I mean, this is an amazing story.
Pray first of all, pray first about everything. Pray first about everything. Keep accurate records. Okay. It's very hard work. It's a 24/7 because we receive calls all during the day and night about the businesses, what went right, what went wrong, difficulties, whatever. Mom and I were constantly on the phone 24/7, making trips. I'd have to make trips all during the day and night to pick up employees, bring them to work. If we didn't have somebody to work, I'd have to call, mom would have to call somebody. I'd go pick them up and take them to work when somebody didn't show up. So it was a constant 24-hour working hard. There's a lot of sacrifices. Um, Daddy did not close his businesses on Sundays. I wish he would have, but Dad would stay open on Sundays. Daddy operated some of his businesses that he could, the restaurant business, he could operate all night long. So Daddy stayed open all night long. He never closed. He served breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 24 hours, never closed. Of course, his bars, he had to close. He had to close his bars at 2:30 in the morning. And of course, the carry out that he had to close at 1:30 in the morning, because that's what the license required. But Daddy didn't go to church in his early years. Dad did go to church and Dad prayed a lot. But as he got busier and busier, 17 businesses, he couldn't go to church anymore. He didn't have time. I wish he would have, but he didn't. And he wouldn't close his businesses. He was constantly trying to make money to try to stay aboard, because he said, Dad would always say, people are always going to eat and people are always going to drink. So why not make money off of that?
Making money off of it.
Yeah, so that's what Dad did. So, I felt that, you have to research, so that you make every decision right, and just keep God in prayer that you do make every decision right in whatever you do.
Wow. So, how would you say the legacy of your family's business during those turbulent times, and even the contemporary discussions about equity? We always talk about economic equity and entrepreneurship in marginalized communities. What advice would you give based off of your family legacy and just this incredible story?
Uh, I would say, I'm sorry, I think now Blacks are creating generational wealth. Um, Blacks are learning how to do that, creating generational wealth. If you have a dream, go with your dream. Keep working hard. Don't give up on your dream. Rally at the bad times, and keep pushing forward. And um, you have to patronize one another. We have to patronize our Black business. We have to pray for our Black business. We have to network with one another. Um, we have to, with our family, friends, and employees, we have to stick together, work hard together, pray together, and be a community, and work as a community, and stop all this jealousy, envy, and fighting against one another. We have to work together, and just keep pushing forward, and keep God in prayer, and everything will work out that way.
Well, Jesse, I want to thank you for sharing this story about your life. I mean, this is a remarkable story. And I actually remember Ben's hamburgers. I do. I remember those hamburgers well. My dad was a big customer. So I do remember them. And I just think that you've given some really interesting information to everybody about the power of entrepreneurship, but also the power of togetherness and people working together, because I do think creating economic empowerment is a key driver for African American business and any business to be successful. And I think for your family business to have endured what they had to endure with, lack of support, lack of resources, and then even an infrastructure that kind of turns on them when we all think the Great 35, freeway when that came through, that didn't necessarily help everybody. So I think you've given us a lot of tools that say, if there's going to be economic development, we have to be sitting at the table when those discussions are occurring, so that we can say, hey, this, we don't know this is going to help. It's going to create
That's
a lot
right.
of challenges for us. And then even
That's
trying to engage, law enforcement to help protect your businesses and how expensive that had to be to still then not get the protection that you needed is just
Right.
wow, it's an incredible story. Or anything, any final thoughts you want to leave us with? I just found this so fascinating.
Just
I'm still tired. I'm still tired thinking of 17 businesses. I can't even imagine that.
I know when I look back at it, it seems like it was a dream, that it never happened. When I look back, it seems like a dream, but it did happen. I lived through it. Mom and dad are both gone now. Mom lived to be almost 99 years old, and dad died at 61. But they both worked awful hard, and I never believed that they um, got the credit for what they did, because God gave them so much grace and so much
Mhm.
mercy, and they worked so hard. It was like if they were just swept under the rug. And I'm so glad, Michelle, that you gave me this opportunity to let you know some of the experiences and what they had to go through. And a lot of people, a lot of Black people went through during those times. And we're still going through turbulent times even today. So I'm so glad for this opportunity. Thank you so
Well,
much.
I appreciate the opportunity. When I first heard the story and when I heard the number of businesses, I was like, "What? This people need to know this. People need to hear how amazing and yet how challenging that had to be." I could only imagine because I remember my parents talking about you couldn't get loans for homes. You couldn't. There were just so many things you couldn't do. And so when people talk about, "Oh, you can go just get a small business loan," I was like, "Not during those times. Those kind of resources." Just were not available. And when you're talking about access to capital and then protection, security, and your own community thinking, well, what is it you're trying to do, to try to better us? No, this is a story that needs to be told. And I hope that anybody out there that was a benefactor that either worked for your dad or was benefited from his generosity from your parents, I just hope, they give us a thumbs up and just spread the word that there were decent people. There have always been decent people throughout life to help us. And I think we've got as a community remember that we were always a community that helped each other. And we may have to get back to this because I think we're in some turbulent times again. So
Yes,
hats off to you.
yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks.